So now let's take a look at finding the equation of a line. So slope-intercept form, again, we write it as y equals mx plus b. Slope is my m, b is my y-intercept. So here's an example. Y equals 1/2 x plus 3. My slope is 1/2. My y-intercept is 3. So you might be asked to find the equation of a line given the slope equals 2/3 and the y-intercept equals 4. Well, we just write y equals mx plus b. We'd plug in the m, which is slope of 2/3, and the b, which is the y-intercept, which would be 4. There is our equation of the line. That is the easiest type of equation to write when you're given slope and the y-intercept. Now you also might be asked to find the equation of a line given a point and the slope. So here's a point. The point is -1, -5, and my slope is 2. So again, I'm going to write my equation, y equals mx plus b, and I'll put in the pieces I know. So the first thing I know is I know the slope. So I can put in the slope, y equals 2x plus b. So what am I missing? Well, I am missing my b. I don't have it. I have a point, -1, -5, but I don't have my b. I can substitute that point to find my b because I'm left with a y, a x, and a b. Well, hey, I'm given an x and a y right there. So I'm going to go back to my equation, and where there was a y, I'll substitute the -5. I have my 2 for my slope. Where there was the x, I'll substitute in -1, and I'm going to solve to find b. So I solve it, find my b. My last step then is to write my equation in y equals mx plus b form. So that gives me y equals 2x plus a -3, or y equals 2x minus 3. Notice I don't keep my -1 and my 5 point in my final equation. That's because I want to write the final equation to represent any point that could be on that line, any x and y. And this is just one point that is on that line. So if I stuck that one point in here, it should make the equation work because it is a solution. But I'm not going to write that point in my final equation. I leave it y equals the slope x plus the y-intercept. So another example that you might see would be find the equation of a line given 2 points. So here are 2 points. Here's what I know. An equation of a line looks like this, y equals mx plus b. So what am I going to do first? Well, I don't know my slope and I don't know my y-intercept, just having 2 points. But what I can do is find my slope, first step. So I find my slope, and I'm going to use the equation that I've had before, which says y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I take my 2 points, I label them x1, y1, x2, y2. I substitute in y2, y1, minus x2, minus x1. I do my subtraction, and I got a slope of 1. Well, now I have a slope, and I have 2 points. So now this problem is just like the last problem we did. So now I can write my equation, y equals 1x plus b. So I have my slope. I don't have my b. I need to find my b. I can substitute in a point. It doesn't matter which point I choose. I can choose either point. I'm going to choose this point because it has positive numbers, and if I can avoid working with negative numbers, I will, because a lot of times we make mistakes when we're working with our negative numbers. So I'm going to choose my positive point. Again, I'm going to do just like I did in the last one. I'm going to substitute that point in, the 2 for my x, the 4 for my y. I'm going to solve for my b. I'm not finished. I now need to write my equation with the m and the b in it. So y equals 1x plus 2. Now we'll take a quick look at something called point slope form. Point slope form looks like this. It says y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I will not make you memorize this formula for the test. The other formulas, yes. This one I will not. So here's an example. I'm given 2 points. Again, we're going to write this into an equation. So my first step, again, I have 2 points. My first step will always be to find the slope. This is actually the same 2 points we just did. So the slope turns out to be the same thing, 1. I'm going to go back to my formula. Here's my formula now. This is the point slope formula. And I'm going to substitute a 1 in here. Again, I'm going to pick a point. I chose 2 and 4, so I picked 2 and 4. And I substitute those in. I'm not finished. I need to make sure that I clean it up and get y by itself on one side. So I add 4 to both sides, and I get y equals x plus 2. So on the exam, when I ask you to write an equation given 2 points, I do not care whether you use point slope form or if you use the y equals mx plus b form. Okay, just make sure that you're able to do one of them. So the last thing is you might be asked to write the equation of a line given the picture. So again, I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. I need to look for my slope and my y-intercept. So I look here, I pick 2 points on the graph. I say, hey, my y-intercept, my b, is equal to a positive 3. And then I look and I say, hey, to get from this point to that point, what is my rise and my run? Well, I had to go down 3. So my rise was a negative 3. I had to run over 1, 2. So my run is equal to 2. So I have my rise over my run, which is slope, is negative 3 over 2, plus my y-intercept, which was 3. There's my equation of a line. Y equals negative 3/2 x plus 3. So you might be asked to find the y-intercept and the slope. So when we look at y equals mx plus b, the m stands for the slope and the b stands for the y-intercept. So if I look at this equation, my slope is 2, my y-intercept is a negative 3. This negative stays with the 3. So that would be my y-intercept. If I look at this, y equals 3x, my slope would be 3. It's just the number in front of the x. It doesn't include the x. My y-intercept would be 0 because I'm adding 0 on here. So my y-intercept would be 0. If I look at something like this, hey, my slope is 0. I don't have anything in front of the x, and my y-intercept would be 4. Another way to look at this is I remember this is a horizontal line. Horizontal lines always have slope of 0, and the y-intercept is where I cross the y-axis. If it helps you draw a little picture, crosses at 4. So slope was 0, y-intercept was 4. If I look at this, x equals 1, I remember, oh, this type of picture, that is a vertical line with an x equals. That means my slope is undefined. Remember that? I would become undefined if I went off a slope like that on my snowboard. And my y-intercept, well, hey, it never crosses the y-axis, so that doesn't exist. If I look at a problem like this, I want to rewrite that problem to be y equals. So I would go y equals, well, I'll subtract 12x from both sides. And then I have this in the form y equals mx plus b. So my slope would be a negative 12, and my b would be 6.